The 150th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been, there ever will be.
Nate Humphrey and King likes the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Down off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores.
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national dadgum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You've got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Today, me and Anthony are back to recap the 79-60 season opening win over the College of Charleston, which happened on Wednesday night in a very empty, very vacant, very quiet Smith Center. But first off, buddy, yesterday was Thanksgiving. I hope you're full of turkey, stuffing, and the pies.
That's right. Yeah, I am definitely full of that. It was a very happy Thanksgiving for me, being with some of my family members, immediate with family members. But yeah, no, definitely. You know, always one of those favorite holidays because you get to load up on some food. So yeah, no, it was great. How about your Thanksgiving with you and your family?
I'm thankful that Carolina basketball was back because I'm not thankful I had to watch the Cowboys play football for 3 hours. But besides that, I had some great time with my family and my girlfriend's family. Very, very fun day. Thanksgiving is my favorite personal holiday, and yesterday was a lot of fun. What was a lot of fun, though, also was Wednesday night. And there's a lot of things that happened in that game that made it fun. First off, we got to see Carolina play basketball. And with COVID and everything that's revolving around the sports world and just the world in general, that was a win. And then you got to see a very young team look and give you glimpses of what we can expect from them to be more consistently come February and March. And I think that's the thing that I took away from Wednesday night's game is that while I think they are much more talented than a year ago, they're also a lot more younger. So they're still going to have those same stretches that we saw last year with the veteran team, even though they have more talent on this year's younger team. But I thought they looked – I think they looked about as good as they could look given the fact that they didn't have a normal preseason. They didn't have a late night with Roy scrimmage. They didn't have 2 secret scrimmages. But they left the game knowing that they have a lot of things that they can get better at in the immediate future.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things when you talk about this game and really these first few games of the season that you're going to have to keep in mind is that this is an off-season unlike any other. This is not something that anybody was really expecting, and Carolina had to come out and adjust to it. The good news is that everybody else is in a similar boat. So, everybody that is young like you, which there are teams throughout the country that are like that, will go through similar struggles. And, for Carolina, I think, they played a College of Charleston team that, some people thought with the transfers that they got in, this team could be pretty good. They had a chance to potentially be a factor in their conference and potentially earn an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament if, of course, they go with the way they've been doing the tournament in the past. No clue as to whether or not they're going to change it up or whatever. But this is still a good win for Carolina, because this is a game that last year, the way that the team played when they got down, early in that second half, that team probably would have allowed that game to stay close. The College of Charleston probably would have had a chance to win that game at the end. That's what I think the difference is with this team this year, is that they were able to string together a stretch where they came down the floor, they scored as every time they came down the floor, and that was something we just didn't see from this team a year ago. They were, very, very rarely could they put together long stretches of scoring. I mean, they went on a 17-0 run to be able to pull away from the College of Charleston. That's something that should be encouraging. There's still a lot of things to work on. We know that. They know that. Roy knows that. But at the same time, it's still a win that you can come out of feeling confident that this team is at the least going to be more competitive than they were last year.
Yeah, I think, as weird as it is, because it was against a mid-level group of 5 team, Carolina can build on this win, and I think they actually will build on when we see them in the Maui Invitational next week. I think the thing that, when you talk about this game, and I noticed it, or, it really stood out, was when they announced the starting lineup 5 minutes before the game, and they were starting 2 freshmen in the backcourt. The last time Carolina had done that was an 2008 regional final against Georgetown and Ty Lawson and Wayne Ellington. And I think let's look at those 2 guys individually here for a second. I think Caleb Love and R.J. Davis both individually and together showed you glimpses of what we can expect from them in the future. With Caleb Love, we've heard a lot about he wants to get up and down the court, and he fits Carolina's system a lot better than Cole Anthony did a year ago. He's a more natural player, and I think you saw that he led the team in scoring. Actually, it was the game's leading scorer at 17 points, was 4 of 11 from the field. I love him going 8 of 8 from the foul line. There was even a shot, and you and I were hanging out watching the game together, where he got the ball on a rebound, drove to about the 14-foot mark, and shot the ball, and he missed it. And and you and I disagreed. I said, I'll take the shot. And even though you want him to make it, that's something that Carolina didn't do last year, was that they didn't just take the ball, run down, and shoot the ball. And in an ideal situation, maybe when he looks at the film, he waits to have a big guy trailing to get a rebound. But I think that he really showed that he wants to get the ball up and down the floor at a fast rate, and he did that. And then R.J. Davis, I think he was just a very physical player on the perimeter for Carolina, as an offensive player and a defensive player. I thought he was able to take guys off the dribble and finish through contact. And I thought defensively he was willing to put his body in situations where he was going to get bumped and hit and dive on the floor. And I think Carolina's going to be better defensively with those 2 guys on the perimeter. So what was your takes from the 2 freshman backcourt players that started on Wednesday night for Carolina?
Yeah, I was impressed. I got to admit it. First game, again, not against the opponent that you had to open last year with. And everybody remembers Cole Anthony had a great performance out of the gate, so we can't be overly confident in what we saw from Caleb Love. Whatever. If you want to believe that, guys, believe that. He fits this offense so much better than Cole Anthony did. You can see that. You can see the way that he can push the floor a little bit better than Cole did, even in just, some of the limited looks. But I thought this team was definitely, later in the second half, was definitely more efficient in the half court. And that was something that we knew they would have to do. Of course, like we said, we want them to get out and run. If it's there, run, because you've got the guys that can do it. You saw that the other night, especially with your 2 guards. I mean, as you said, Caleb Love, he had his moments where he would drive the basket as well, but R.J. Davis did the same thing. And R.J. talked about it in the post-game press conference when he said, look, we're basically 2 point guards out there. I play the point guard position. I can also play the 2 guard position, but both of us have a point guard mentality where we want to be aggressive, we want to go to the basket. And I think that's what you saw from both guys. I think that Caleb Love also, and again, this is not a slight against Cole. I think what you saw from Caleb was a guy that was a little more in control than Cole Anthony was at times. That was the one thing that got frustrating a little bit about Cole. We knew he was a great player, but he was always trying to make the highlight reel pass, the highlight reel shot, something like that. Caleb Love's a guy that's not really going to force the action. If it's there, he's going to take it. But there's also, to be fair to Cole Anthony, a lot more talent around him. But I think you have to be encouraged by what you saw from both those guys, especially on the offensive end, but on the defensive end as well. I mean, this team played really well defensively outside of that stretch there at the end of the first half and early in the second half. And, that's something that's a little scary because that was a problem for that team a year ago. But at the same time, there's a lot of things to be encouraged about, especially with your two freshman guards. And I mean, I think as much as you want to talk about Caleb Love, R.J. Davis is the guy that's the standout of the two to me because, remember, this guy didn't know that he was going to start this game until he said a couple hours before the game started. So for him to come in, play that well, and, pretty much give the impression that he's probably going to start at least until Anthony Harris comes back, and who knows, if he keeps playing the way he is, there'll be some conversation there. You've got to be very, very happy as Tori.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something about Carolina, the way they played defensively. And you look at the numbers, and they were very good. They held Charleston to 40% shooting, 35% from three, which if they were going to upset the Carolina, you feel like they were going to be making some three-point shots. So Carolina, defended the ball really well. They forced 15 turnovers. They scored 21 points off those turnovers. And I'm never the kind of guy that really wants to believe that Carolina can be good defensively because they've never really been a really, really good defensive team. But I think this team has potential to be average. And if they're an average defensive team and the offense gets to where we think they can get to, this team's going to be really, really good because at some point the scoring is going to come a lot easier than what it did on Wednesday night. And there were times where Carolina scored the ball whenever they wanted to, however they wanted to. Mainly when they put the ball inside to whoever was inside at the time. Garrison Brooks didn't have a great game, only 6 points, 3 of 10 shooting. Armando Bacot gave you 12 points on 4 of 5 shooting and added 4 of 6 from the foul line. But I think the big guy we got to talk about from this game is Day'Ron Sharpe. And mainly because he got the most buzz of any newcomer coming out of camp or coming out of preseason ball before the season began. When I wrote the front court preview, I included a quote about he has already been labeled the second best player on this team behind, we would assume that being Garrison Brooks. He lived up to that on Wednesday night. He scored 13 points, grabbed 10 rebounds, 5 offensive, 5 defensive, and he played with that motor we heard so much about. He was everywhere, and there's not many teams in this conference that are going to be able to control a guy like Day'Ron Sharpe when he's playing it the way he was playing the other night.
Yeah, that was something that I don't know if it caught me off guard, but I thought there would be a little bit of growing pains for these big guys down low. Him and Walker Kessler, and both guys when they came in. And again, Kessler, was a situation where he was going through contact tracing and the COVID-19 protocol, didn't get to play as much. But both of these guys, we can see why there's a lot of hype around them, especially Day'Ron Sharpe. Everything we heard, kids got the size, got the motor, everything. All that was on display in this game. He is the guy that looks the part of what we thought Armando Bacot was going to be last year.
Yeah.
He first came in and got that you could plug in, and if you needed him to play significant minutes and play a big role down low for you, he could, and he did in this game. And I think that's the biggest thing right now. Even if for some reason Walker Kessler was to not be the guy that his star rating is, and it takes him a year or two to get going, you've got 3 guys right now that legitimately could make first team All-ACC. Day'Ron Sharpe has the skill set. Again, I don't think he's a guy. We saw him, step away from the basket, take a shot. I don't think that's his game, but he is going to be a guy that, for the first time in a long time, you're going to be able to put the ball inside and he will simply just bully you. And that's something that we haven't really seen from Carolina in a while. We saw it with guys like Joel James, but, Joel wasn't a big part of the team, not like Day'Ron Sharpe is going to be. So that's the thing that I think you have to be very encouraged about with Day'Ron is that, to come out, play that well. We're going to find out how good he is here when we play 3 games in 3 nights. I think that'll really show you just how good he is. But there's still a lot to be enthusiastic about. And I think it was concerning early on from the team as a whole that they weren't really rebounding great College of Charleston was out rebounding them for a good portion of the first half. But once they knew that they had to